What's better, the good old-fashioned 300 Win Mag or the newcomer, the 300 PRC? In this video, we're going to dig deep into comparing these two cartridges. We're going to talk about case capacity, recoil, ballistic performance, load data, and more. Hey guys, Gavin here from UltimateReloader.com. I'm here with Guy Miner. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this story.
You bet.
This is a lot like our first comparison of this type, which was 7 Rem Mag versus 7 PRC. A little bit of surprises and then some also not so surprising facts. This time we're looking at the 300 Win Mag and the 300 PRC. You know, the 300 Win Mag goes back quite a ways, right? Designed in 1963. It's got the 375 H&H Magnum as its parent case, which I know you're a fan of.
Yep. And I'm older than it is. I was designed several years before that.
Nice. It's been used all over the place, right? It's a very popular long-range hunting cartridge.
Yes.
It's been used in law enforcement. It's been used in the military and for target purposes, right?
Yes.
There's almost nothing it hasn't done that this cartridge would, fit the bill for, right? It has 1 in 10 twist per Saami, and it is a belted Magnum. Now, I've talked with Steve Hornady in person about this. Steve's not so much of a fan about the belt. Get rid of the belt, I think were his exact words, right?
Something
Who
like
needs
that.
it? Something like that, yeah. So then we have the 300 PRC, which was Saami certified in 2018. We jumped right on the bandwagon here on Ultimate Reloader. We did 2 builds initially, a typical weight hunting rifle, not unlike what we've got here. And then we also did a full custom that I think weighs 26 pounds.
It's a lot.
With no optic, yeah. It's the good shooter. In fact, if you look up my video, is 300 PRC too much for deer? That's that 26-pound full custom that I shot a deer with 60 yards, something like that. The most ridiculous scenario ever. But you know what? It wasn't too much. And that buck was down in its tracks. The meat was not completely spoiled, It didn't even go all the way through the deer. The bullet did a great job of expanding. That was the 212 ELD-X. Stayed in the deer. So unlike 300 Win Mag, 375 Ruger parent case, I know Steve Hornady is definitely a fan of the 375 Ruger. He mentioned that to me as well. Mostly hunting, military, and target use. 1 in 8.5 twist. Now this is something that I think people riff on a little bit. Bergara used 1 in 9.
Right.
I've done 2 different twist rates. I think I did a 1 in 8.5 and a 1 in 9. And so there's definitely some different options there, just like if you build a custom 300 Win Mag. Another big difference here is no belt, right? It ditches the belt.
That's a big change. If you just take a look at the 2 cases, they're similar size.
Yep.
And until sometimes at a quick glance, I had to look for the belt, see
right.
Which case have I got in my hand.
Yeah.
They're close.
Very, very close. And if we look at the Saami specs, I pulled up the specs for the 300 Win Mag and the 300 PRC here. I want to point out some key changes here. So up on the ammunition side, we have the belt, of course, which is on the 300 Win Mag and not on the 300 PRC. But look at the difference in cartridge overall length allowance. You've got up to 3.7 inches for the 300 PRC and up to 3.340 inches for the 300 Win Mag. So that's 360 thousandths longer. That's actually quite a bit.
Yeah, a lot of long actions with the 300 Win Mag. You can actually seat that bullet out quite a bit more. In fact, in Hornady's manual, they have a 3.5 overall length listed for the Win Mag with the 212.
Interesting.
I'd have to have it in front of me to double
Sure.
check, but I believe I saw that.
Every rifle's going to be a little bit different.
Oh yeah.
Every magazine, you're going to want to make sure that you check magazines if you're building a 300 PRC, especially if you're going to load out to, to 3.7. Going down below the blue lines, we have the chamber specifics, and the key thing I wanted to point out there was that with the 300 Win Mag, you've got 7 thou over bullet diameter for clearance in the free bore. Whereas with the 300 PRC, you've only got 8/10,000ths of an inch. So roughly 1/10 the wobble room, if you will.
That's tight.
For the bullet in the free bore. And that was one of the things that Hornady mentioned in one of their deep dives about the cartridge was they wanted to tighten up that free bore a little bit.
Yeah, and that kind of thing enhances your accuracy potential.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was talking with F-Class John about this. We feel like, F-Class John and I, we are hypothesizing, you know, like you do with rifle accuracy, that certain bullets are probably a little bit more sensitive to run out and to free bore clearance than others. Some bullets are going to be able to guide themselves in and straighten themselves a little bit more, and some might enter the rifling a little bit more cockeyed, as it were. He did an experiment and proved that there was very little difference with a high degree of run out, but that might be because he had that tight free bore and it was going to guide it back straight when it's going through. You never know. So yeah, what we did was I approached Bergara and I said, hey, we want to do this 300 Win Mag versus 300 PRC story. Why don't we get the same exact, literally identical rifles with the exception of the chambering? And I said, well, that sounds like a cool story. So let's do it. And that's what we've got here. Two different SKUs, a little bit different price. Interesting, $1249 for the 300 Win Mag MSRP, $1299 for the 300 PRC. I noticed that the magazines are different, which makes sense given the different cartridge overall length specifications. They both have 26-inch barrels, which was really important for this story. Like I said, Bergara went with 1 9 for the 300 PRC instead of 1 8.5, but they stuck with the 1 10 recommended for 300 Win Mag, right?
Right. Yeah, that's been pretty much a standard for a long, long time. I'm not sure I've ever seen a 300 Win Mag with anything except the 1 10.
Yep. These B14 HMR Wilderness rifles, I will have to say I am a huge fan of. We have that 6.5 PRC that we've featured here on the channel multiple times with some low development. I was able to get a 5-shot group that I think was in the low 3s. It's like 0.320 inches. For a Magnum, that's like
And this was
really
not
good.
one of your custom barrel jobs? This was as built by the factory?
That was a factory Bergara rifle, hand loads, you know, really just working on, you know, fine-tuning the load. Was shooting off of a bench rest, you know, like everything kind of coming together. And I've talked to a lot of other people. It's not uncommon to see half MOA performance out of a Bergara.
Nice.
Yeah, and so really good stuff. Both have 5-round detachable box magazine, which is my preference for hunting. Preload the mag, rifle is safe. Ready to shoot the deer or the elk. Pop it in, chamber around, ready to go.
Yeah,
Love it.
It's quick. There's a lot of things I actually like about these rifles. We've got your adjustable cheek piece here, or adjustable comb.
Yep.
I like that. Helps you get behind the scope properly. They've got a nice hollow out back here, so there's no interference at all with the bolt. There's a loaded chamber indicator. I like that. That's kind of nice. You know when it's cocked back there. Very easy to remove the bolt for cleaning.
External bolt stop.
Yeah. Pretty stiff stock. I like that. A lot of the synthetic stocks I have had a bone to pick with because they were flippy floppy.
Right.
You know, and just not good.
Tupperware.
Not the case here. Yeah.
Not Tupperware here.
No. And they've got these flush cups for your sling. That's a neat idea.
Yeah, QD is definitely the way to go. Threaded muzzle comes with the brake. You can just screw on a suppressor super easy. These brakes come off. If you shove a Phillips head screwdriver through the holes or something like that, you can easily crack the torque on that. 5/8 24 threading, pretty much standard business. You know, it comes with a lot of the things that I feel like every rifle that's a serious rifle should come with. You know, Bergara really stepped up where Remington kind of trailed off with the Remington 700. You know, so
As a fan of the 700, I look at these and I go,
pretty good.
They did that right.
Yeah.
They did that right. Yeah, I'm impressed.
Yep. So test loads. These are loads that you put together. Thank you very much for working on that.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I like hand loading.
So we've got 180 Bergers, and we've also got 212 ELD-X. So the 180 Berger favor maybe the 300 Win Mag. 212 ELD-X is kind of pushing the upper threshold of what's designed for the 300 Win Mag.
Yeah, it works fine, but yeah, it's getting up there. Bullet length is getting to be quite long.
Yep. And so, you know, we should note that the 300 PRC can go further in terms of high BC performance than what we're showing here. 225s would be a really popular, you know, 225 ELDM. I know there's some A-tips. there's a bunch of options, and we didn't want to exclusively just show something on the 300 PRC side only. We could have made it work. We could have, now stability, bullet stability becomes an issue with 1 and 10 there, right? So trying to keep the ammunition equation, you know, where we can still show it reasonably in the 300 Win Mag. So I like your picks here. What was interesting to me about this, and were you using Hodgdon load data here for this?
Yes.
Yes. So the Bergara 180 had 85.5 Mag Pro in the 300 Win Mag, and it had 84.5 in the 300 PRC. I found that particularly interesting because I would have thought it would have been the other way around.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't explain it. It just is, and that's fine. You know, and maybe we could have bumped it up another grain. I don't know.
Yeah.
Didn't do a lot of load development on this. Went ahead and I knew we wanted to build some ammo for this test. Sat down on the press and made it happen. Like you were talking about tuning those loads for the 6.5 PRC, I think that both of these rifles could tighten up from what we've seen if we had spent some more time load development. Get that overall length, you know, seating depth, get that squared away, play with the powder charge a little bit more. Yeah, I think we could have done better, but we did good.
And the one note here is that there wasn't correct load data with the Mag Pro for the 300 PRC with the 212 ELD-X, so you switched to Grand for that. Now, Grand has been a super good performer for us.
Oh, yeah.
Your story on that showed just how much performance there was. And so Guy went to L1, our mid-mountain range, with the chronograph and tested this. And what we've got for that is this data. And so pretty curious. Again, it kind of followed the trend of the charge weight, right? We had a little bit more velocity out of the 300 Win Mag, which was a little bit surprising. Maybe even more than what the charge weight discrepancy would indicate.
That's a lot of velocity for a 180 out of a 300 Win Mag. You're getting up there.
3177.
Yeah,
moly.
the factory specs on a 180 factory load is 2960.
Yeah.
And here we are at 3177. My eyes sure opened up when I saw the chronograph. I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah, it was really sailing. You know, and run with it.
Yeah.
26-inch barrel helps. And I think that Mag Pro performed really well. By the way, it was 30 degrees out at the range today. We were out there in the snow.
And the 212 ELD-X was no slouch either. 2972 in the 300 Win Mag and 2912 in the 300 PRC. Certainly completely lethal on a moose or an elk or what it is, whatever it happens to be in terms of Alaskan game, as long as you've got somewhat decent shot placement, right?
Shot placement, bullet construction, if you've got all that working for you, because you've definitely got the velocity out of either one of these Magnum cartridges.
Yep.
There's no denying that the 300 PRC is a Magnum. Absolutely, it's a Magnum.
Yeah, and you know, in fairness, I think based on the load data we had on hand, we had 300 PRC pull into the lead, but you know, when we talk about case capacity, we'll talk about what should be possible, right? But one of the things that we did, and this was, let's see, was this with the 212 ELD-X, the recoil comparison?
I think we had the 225 ELDM.
That's right, 225s. Okay, so pushing heavy bullets, indicated max load data for each. We've got our new recoil rig that has the Duosoft Sirius 8-channel data acquisition system. We've got the PCB load cell and also some improvements to the sled and frame itself so that we can get the forces squared up on the load cell a bit more consistently and not have off-angle effects, that sort of thing. And so this kind of surprised me. Processed all the data and boom, almost the same exact recoil impulse for every shot. Very consistent for each rifle, and then when we stacked both rifles on top of each other, basically the same exact signature. So if you're shooting a 300 Win Mag with a 225 ELDM, and if you're shooting a 300 PRC with a 225 ELDM, there's no way that you're going to be able to tell the difference.
No, and I don't think the elk out there at 400 yards is going to be able to tell the difference either. So, no, but they are very similar. You know, and what do we expect? We've got two identical rifles from Bergara, almost identical, and loaded them up really close to the same. And yeah, well, guess what? they recoil about the same.
Exactly. It's really cool to see that, and it shows just how consistent this setup is able to measure recoil. Okay, so I mentioned case capacity a moment ago. What Guy and I did just before shooting this video was we got out our TRX 920 scale from Creedmoor Sports, and we put a 300 Win Mag case on the platen and filled it with water to the exact convex profile, and then did the same for the 300 PRC. And this is what we discovered. We had 93.05 grains water capacity for the 300 Win Mag and 96.5 for the 300 PRC. So that's only a difference of 3.7%. But the big thing to note here is the big design difference between these two cartridges is that the 300 PRC is optimized for those longer, higher BC bullets. So if you want to use the 225 like we did in the recoil comparison, you're going to be shoving that bullet down into the 300 Win Mag case quite a bit, and that just impedes on case capacity.
Sure it does. Eats into it fast.
So the bigger, the heavier, longer, higher BC bullet that you're going to use, the more the 300 PRC is going to pull away from the 300 Win Mag in terms of case capacity and therefore velocity. So the velocity win on the 300 Win Mag with the Bergara 180 here is short-lived, I guess you could say.
You're about to outgun me, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
You got to go back in the reloading room and put a little bit more in there.
Yep. And so I charted out the ballistics out to 1,000 yards. And we had, this is kind of more of an interesting experiment more than anything else, right? We had a velocity difference of 68 feet per second. And what was interesting to see there is that nets out to a bullet drop difference at 1,000 yards of 11.4 inches.
That surprised me.
It's pretty sizable. So hopefully you have a very consistent velocity. Hopefully you've checked it with the chronograph and you're using a laser rangefinder. So there's no uncertainty with range, really, and there's very little uncertainty with velocity as well. And so that becomes somewhat of a moot point, but it does go to show that 100 feet per second, 50 feet per second is meaningful, and it becomes more meaningful the further you go out.
Which is one of the reasons why when I'm coming up with a load, I try to pay a lot of attention to my SD, because I don't want it making a difference in my point of impact out there downrange.
Absolutely, yeah.
I want to keep that vertical spread on target tight.
Yeah, I think it would be fun to take these rifles both out to Harold, 1390. Oh, yeah. See what we can do.
They could do it.
Yep. So this was fun putting together all of the data and to see this and to literally feel it behind the rifle. And if you guys recall, this is literally the conclusion from our 7 Rem Mag versus 7 PRC story. 7 Rem Mag remains great, of course, right? 7 PRC is a better long-range shooting solution. The 7 PRC also doesn't have the belt, which you don't need and you don't want, but also is not a huge problem. Sorry,
no, it's
Steve.
not.
And the question that we asked, will the 7 PRC replace the 7 Rem Mag, right? And for new rifles, probably so. For people with existing rifles, not really a huge incentive to upgrade unless you're all about that long-range shooting, right?
Right. My good old Ruger #1 7mm Magnum is going to stay right there.
Yep.
You know, that's my baby. It's going to just stay where it is and how it is.
Yep. So translating that to this comparison, we have essentially the same conclusions.
Yeah.
The 300 Win Mag remains great. 300 PRC is definitely a better solution for long-range shooting, right? It's astonishing what the 300 PRC can do, really. It gets you into that ELR category of capability with the right bullet and the right hand loads and the right dope, the right equipment, the right shooting strategy and knowledge, right? In ELR, everything matters.
Yes.
A lot. Kind of like in bench rest, everything matters, but in the opposite range, right? In the extreme long range rather than in the close range, right? Of course, the 300 PRC ditches the belt, and long term, what's going to happen to the 300 Win Mag? Probably be like the 7 Rem Mag, right? It'll still be around.
It'll hang on for decades.
They'll still sell new rifles because there's still guys that, I was just talking to a guy about your favorite cartridge, 30-06, right? And
Just hearing that makes me feel good.
he said, you know what, Gavin? I have a ton of 30-06 ammo, and I have my 30-06 rifle. It's what I know, and I don't want to switch. So he wasn't interested in any rifles that were not 30-06, right? And there's guys that they've just gotten to know their favorite 300 Win Mag load, and they've invested a lot in their rifle. They've invested a lot in their reloading gear and in their time and knowledge and familiarity with the cartridge. Could they sidestep over to 300 PRC? Absolutely. Do they need to? Depends on how important that 1,200, 1,500 yard plus scenario is to them.
Right, right. 400 yards on an elk isn't going to matter.
True.
Just isn't going to matter.
Like you said, the elk didn't know the difference.
But 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 yards trying to hit a target, it might make a difference. You know?
So here's what I want to do with you, Guy.
Uh-oh.
You know, we have steel out to 1390. I think we need steel at 1760.
A mile.
Yes. And so I want to do some shooting with you right here at Ultimate Reloader at a mile. And then we can both have some ELR fun right here. And that might be another good time to take this challenge back out and you know, put it to the test kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
So here's what we want to know from you is, what do you think about the 300 Win Mag versus the 300 PRC? Have you made the switch? If you're buying a new rifle, which way would you look? Do you have a 300 Win Mag or a 300 PRC? What's your rifle? What's your load, and what are you shooting with it? Is it elk? Is it targets? Is it something else? Drop a comment, and we'll join you down there in the comments discussion. Thank you again, Guy, for joining me. This was a lot of fun.
This was fun.
That concludes this video, and that means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. Thanks again for watching.